How are we doing, you guys? We're back to Hytale Lore. If you've watched these lore videos before, you will recognize this little title card that we have right here because we were, up until this week, doing these in Google Slides. This was a PowerPoint presentation. And now we get to do this in the actual world of Orbis. I've put some things together here. Let's do this. If you did not know, Hytale has potentially more than just the couple gods that we thought that it did. Or maybe they're different representations of the same gods. It's hard to say, but we're going to dive into it a little bit today. We're good to do it in the world of Orbis for the first time. I would also like to quickly shout out Rue and Wins for this, as some of this information started with them. I'm going to link their channels in the description. Now, let's get started. There's so much that I found. There's so much that I found that I want to show you guys, okay? So first of all, we're going to bring our inventory back in. There are two main deities that we know about in the world of Orbis. There's Gaia, which is the lady that these statues depict here. She is the wielder of the 5 elements of Orbis and the element of life. She is, as far as we know, currently in some sort of stasis or coma. She is asleep. And part of your job as the player, your responsibility is to help her wake up, hence the collecting memories throughout the game. Then there's the void presence of Varen, who is more or less the big bad. Think invasive, almost alien, godlike presence. So all those void eyes and the crawlers and Varen spawn, they come from him. But there may, in fact, be more to this than we thought. Here's a couple of interesting things that I'd like to throw out here, okay? Some of the items in the game, they have these descriptions beneath them. And some of these are very interesting. This is the workbench. Just normal, regular old workbench in the game. Let's read what this says. No artisan is born a creator. Even avatars need time to hone their craft, particularly when bound by the rules of another's domain. Implying that when we are in a creative world, our players, the avatars, are in control. We're in our own world. However, when we're in Orbis, we're in somebody else's domain. I think the obvious answer here is Gaia, but I think that it's amazing that literally the workbench, the table that you use all the time, has that little lore snippet on it. Now, there's also this statue that you use to unlock the memories. Let's read what this says. A faint, disembodied voice can be heard in the presence of this statue. Echoes of a being from beyond the barriers, from the original world. This is very fascinating to me because the workbench in what it says seems to imply, at least in my mind, that Orbis is Gaia's world. But then this says, being from beyond the barriers. And then that makes me think, like, a faint disembodied voice, maybe that's Gaia trying to communicate from wherever she's in stasis, wherever she's sleeping. But then it says from the original world. And I wonder, there's this, you know, echoes of Orbis element to the game where let's actually bring some of these up. Yes, here we have fragments of Orbis, and then we have our echoes of Orbis, like the Forgotten Temple, and I wonder if what we are experiencing is a fragmented version of Gaia's world that we're meant to piece together with the memories, and that the real Orbis is somewhere else, full and complete, or maybe the real Orbis is World Gen version 2. I don't know. There's so many ways that this could go. And here's the other fun thing about this now, is that you guys all have access to this game too. So before this, myself and some of you guys have done some theorizing in the comments section in YouTube. We can continue that theorizing with actual things from the game. If you guys find stuff in the game that you think is relevant to anything that we're talking about, or that you would want to be covered in one of these videos, drop it in there. And if you want to discuss it directly, jump into the Discord server. There will be a link in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. We love a good lore discussion in the Discord. Now, we're going to put that away because we have so much more to look at. So that's just a little intro that I thought was very interesting regarding just the nature of Orbis, who's ruling over it, the state of Gaia, and all of that. Now let's get into the relationship of the peoples of Orbis with their deities. I've comprised a list. That's not right. I've composed a list here of most Gaia to least Gaia, okay? These two are 100%, obviously, no doubt about it, Gaia. This one is too, it's just that, well, her head's been broken off. We'll get to that in a second. This one is also 100% Gaia. You can see she has these little flowers in her hair, and you can absolutely see that flower in the hair right here as well. This one also has flowers in the hair, but it looks more like a Quebec than like Gaia. We're going to get to that in a little bit, okay? We're going to get to that in a bit. Now, we're going to begin with these statues right here. Let's go on a little bit of a journey. I've prepared some things for you guys. So this is the entrance to the Forgotten Temple in Zone 1. This is where you go in order to access the portal and bank your memories. And it has this beautiful statue of Gaia out in front. You can see the symbol that represents the 5 elements. And then inside you see another statue of Gaia. It looks like it has been unused for a good while, right? This is marble. Marble does not deteriorate all that much. And yet it's crumbled. It's crumbled. There's a hole in the roof. There are these roots that are poking through. Obviously, it's been here long enough for the world to begin to reclaim the marble building here. We progress further down and we see the earth golem that is guarding the portal. Once again, a room in which the roots have had time to dig their way into. Now, overall, still fairly well kept, and interesting that we still have offerings here. Like, active offerings that look like they've been placed, and that makes me wonder if the Quebecs don't come to these temples and place things here, because the Quebecs do also live in the Forgotten Temple. There's some of them there, so maybe they're still making their offerings here to Gaia. I think that would be beautiful, and I would love to see gameplay mechanics in the future where the Quebecs literally make little voyages to these temples, little outings to these temples, and leave their offerings there. I think that would be amazing to see. Now, we do also have the Zone 2 variant of this. This has been seen in-game. I've not seen it myself. They seem to be very rare, but we have a Temple of Gaia here as well. We can see building blocks that are definitely indicative in the game of human ruins. So this, like this building, was definitely built by the humans of Zone 2. However, when we get inside of it, what we see is furniture belonging to the Pharans and lighting sources belonging to the Pharans, which means that in the absence of the humans, the Pharans have kind of taken these places over. Like the other temple, you can see that the nature has begun to take this temple back into its own hands. However, it's still being well kept. It's not so ruined. It's not super overgrown. It's clear that it's still in use, given that these torches are burning. There's wardrobes, there's seating here. The Pharans seem to care for this too, which seems to imply that they also believe in Gaia to some degree. Now, they don't have any representations, as far as I've seen, of Gaia in their homes, and yet they seem to care for these temples nonetheless. Now, we're going to walk a little lower here. Here's also a little very Pharan-looking outcropping that they've made. This is the basement where you would enter the portal. And here we have another golem. So this, I believe, being a wind golem. Just as Zone 2 is the zone of wind. And you can see down here, it's also fairly well kept. We have statues of Gaia that are still in good repair. Now, the thing to note here is that these statues, they don't seem to have offerings left in front of them like they did at the other temple. So they seem to keep this building up. They don't seem to have the same amount of reverence for her. There's no offerings here for her. There's no statues of Gaia in their villages right now. And yet they seem to live here. Now, if we progress from this point, we're actually going to skip Zone 3 for the moment. We're going to come back to it in a little bit, but we're going to jump straight from Zone 2 to Zone 4. So right over here, we have the Zone 4 entrance to the Temple of Gaia. I've not seen this one in-game. I've not seen anybody find it in-game, yet it is in the prefabs list. I don't know if it is just something that doesn't spawn yet, or if it's just incredibly rare. But this one is certainly different because she is beheaded. There's a little bit to unpack here, okay? And I think that, quite honestly, Zone 4 deserves its own entire lore video because there are hints of this past civilization that is called Crucible, and Crucible's detachment from Gaia over time and their own hubris that led to their downfall. And those lore snippets that exist in-game are fully worth fleshing out in their own video. But what I will say is that this statue of Gaia is discoverable in Zone 4 cities. These ruined monuments in Zone 4, like this, these blackened, burned cities, you can find statues of Gaia inside with her head missing. Now, here's the thing. These cities have obviously gone through a great amount of devastation, right? They're literally in the devastated lands. They are alongside volcanoes. They have had some serious damage done to them. It makes it unclear if these statues of Gaia were purposefully defaced by the occupants of the city, or if they were broken in the devastation that shook the entire region. I kind of like the theory that they started defacing them themselves, and that was part of what led to their own downfall and the destruction of their cities. It's turning their back on the being that literally represents their whole world. But it's interesting. I think what supports that theory even more is the fact that not only is she beheaded here, but the temple itself is overgrown with these Varen-colored blocks. Like, these are all very Varen materials. These are usually used to show his corruption. Like this right here, there's a little bit of corruption seeping through. And you can see that this temple is in much worse repair than the other two. The other two are crumbling a little bit, but this one is ruined. This one is absolutely ruined. We can go down here further and see it's not been well kept whatsoever. In the basement here, we have the fire golem. We have more broken statues of Gaia. See, I think this also further supports the theory that they were intentionally defaced, because this room is not ruined. These walls are not ruined. This was underground. It seemed to have escaped most of the devastation that wrecked the upper level up here, right? And yet down here, the walls are intact. The statues are still broken. Look at this. The walls are fine. In fact, I don't see a little scratch on them except for this rubble right here that fell through the floor. But all of this, these are all fine. And the statues are not. It says a lot, I think, about the people that once lived here in Zone 4. The way they interacted with the world and the punishment that befell them as a result. Now, let's fly back over here before we go any further. We're going to save the Zone 3 temple for a little bit later because it is different from the rest. It's very different from the rest. Now, back to our lineup of Gaia to not Gaia. We have these two that we saw inside of the Forgotten Temple entrances. We saw this one in front of Zone 4. Now we have this one. This one is very easy to find. All you have to do is find a good old Quebec treehouse. So up here in the trees where they live, you can find statues of Gaia. They very clearly have a lot of love for her. I wonder if there's any inside. I've not actually stepped in here. Do I have to crouch? Oh, I'm too tall. That's funny. Their doors are so short, you have to crouch. I didn't actually know that. There we go. There's a statue of Gaia inside a home. Oh, it's so cute. Very hobbity. So, yes, those little statues, 100% Gaia. The Quebecs absolutely worship Gaia. Next, we get something a little bit different. We get this statue. It is not quite the same as the other Gaia statues. It's a little bit different, and I'm not entirely convinced that it is Gaia. Now, before we go on to those, I do want to briefly check out the descriptions, the IDs for these statues, because they're very interesting too. Let's just quickly grab all of these, and we're going to check them out. So this one, Slumbering Deity. fits perfectly with the lore that we know about Gaia. She is somewhere asleep. And the Zone 1 people might have been aware of this if the statue is literally named Slumbering Deity. Because yes, as far as I can tell, the titles do seem to have some sort of implication for their place within the world. Let's put that away. Statue of a silent deity. This would explain so much why in Zone 1, Gaia still has offerings left for her. She's considered a sleeping deity there. That she's still there, she's just asleep and she needs help. Which makes sense because the Quebecs seem to have access to the Forgotten Temple. They seem to have some awareness of what's going on with all of this, and so they have more reverence. In Zone 2, we get Silent Deity, which is very interesting because in Zone 2, there seem to be other deities that are worshipped other than just Gaia. In Zone 1, we have the Gaia statue that's also made by the Quebecs, and we have the marble one that we just put away. It's just Gaia. In Zone 2, it's more varied, and again, there's not offerings outside of her temple. There's not offerings on, like, the daises in the temple for her. It's not a thing. Silent deity. Humans in the past worshipped her, and now people still occupy those spaces, but for them, she's dead silent. They're not hearing any of those whispers that we get from this statue right here, right? They're not hearing this stuff. So if we grab this statue again, just to remind you, faint disembodied voice can be heard in the presence of this statue from beyond the barriers. If Zone 2 is considering her silent and they're worshipping other gods, they're not hearing those whispers. They're not audible to them, which is very, very interesting. That's something to keep in mind because I think that comes back into play later on. Now, number 3, carved Quebec figure, still pretty obvious, that's Gaia, and then here, ruined statue. Now, let's check out this one here. Overgrown wooden figure. Let's go check out some theories on this. There's a few things that I think this might be related to. Let's dip down here. Here is our statue, and here are a few elements that could be connected. Now, first of all, if this does belong to the Quebecs, because it is, you know, wooden in nature and looks vaguely similar to their representation of Gaia, Quebec seedling. This is the closest you get in the Quebecs to something that looks like this. It has almost the same shape ears, those big eyes, the very square head. The other ones have much larger ears, and they do not look the same. If you guys have seen this in the world, please let me know where it is. I would love to know. It does, however, look like there could be a relationship between it and one of these other mobs here. These are the fawns. In the game files, they are called the Bramblekin, and boy, do they look a lot scarier than I thought they were going to. I was really fully under the impression that the fawns were going to be like the friendlier faction in Zone 3, and maybe they still will be, but this looks terrifying. Like, imagine wandering through those Zone 3 forests and you stumble across these guys. However, the fawns seem to have this red coloring on them that looks very Zone 4, and they were shown in the corrupted forest of Zone 4, so I'm not so sure it's 3 anymore. I don't know. I don't know if it's changing. I don't even know if the developers know, or if they're still working this stuff out, and maybe all of this will change. But this looks a little brambly here at the bottom, and these are Bramblekin. It could be that this is their version of like a forest deity that they worship. Aside from the Bramblekin, we have the Hedera. This is that corrupted Quebec that we have seen in a few gameplay videos before release, or in a gameplay video and a screenshot before release. And it looks like a very messed up, corrupted Quebec. I believe this was seen in the corrupted forest of Zone 4 as well, which makes sense. You can see that corruption that's creeping up the limbs here. It is an incredible design. Now, Hedera means ivy, creeping ivy, which could also mean that this is their statue. This looks like it could be ivy or vines that are creeping up the side in the form of Hedera, or in the manner of Hedera. This one is a little bit of a mystery, and I would love to hear if you guys have any suggestions or ideas on this statue, because it is hard to place. Now, let's return to the rest of our statue procession here. We get to this one right here. Now this one is called Ancient Statue. It does spawn in Zone 1. Now, I do not have any structures that I could find in the prefabs that spawn with it. I don't have them spawned in here. I'm sure that they exist. There's so many structures. I couldn't find it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump into the pictures here. This was on the first day of playing. So it was outside of a human ruin. It's a little bit confusing what to make of this one in particular. It does not look like Gaia, per se. Its feet look like they're bound. Shackled, maybe? I'm not sure. And then it has this on its back. I don't know if this is meant to be like it's bound to this piece of rock and that's part of the shackling that's going on here. Or if this is supposed to be almost some sort of halo representation that is the 5 elements. So clearly there's a relationship to Gaia here. So from the humans that used to worship her, these were statues that they constructed. But it's not Gaia. But it seems to be a very irreverent figure, but still bound? I don't know. There's part of me that wonders if this is a representation of the Knights of the Broken Order, and maybe this is like, you know, they're being bound by Varen's presence, but they're still trying to withstand it. It's a mystery. If there's any hints where the statue spawns, let me know where it can be found, and we will definitely go check it out, 100%. Now, after that, we get this statue right here, which is Statue of an Ancient Knight. I think these two easily go together. However, this one is like overgrown, mossy. This one is not so much, so maybe it was more recent, and this one is older. But either way, you can see the mark of Gaia on the shield and sword. These were clearly knights, maybe Knights of the Broken Order, before it was broken, who were in service to Gaia. I also do not know what structures these spawn in. I have not seen them in-game. I've not encountered them in-game. If you guys know where they are, please let me know, and we will absolutely check them out. Now, after that, we get to this. This is where I'm going to return to our little temple procession here. So, remember, Zone 1, we have statues of Gaia, well kept and with offerings left and maintained. Zone 2, the statues are preserved, but they don't seem to be worshipped, and it's occupied by Pharans. Zone 4, it looks like the statues have been destroyed or defaced, and the temple is in absolute ruins and a state of corruption. Zone 3, Gaia has been replaced. Gaia has been replaced by what seems to be a statue of Varen. Now, let's grab this Outlander deity statue. Now, it is called Dark Statue Gaia, and I have heard the theory that, like, there's some sort of secret twist involving Gaia and Varen, where Varen is Gaia and turned dark or something like that. I don't personally believe it. I don't personally buy into it yet. We'll see what other lore information we get, what else drops, but this seems to be Varen. I mean, it's got the diamond symbol of Varen in there, uncontained as well. If you haven't seen the iconography of the game, Varen's symbol is a diamond. Sometimes the diamond is contained, representing the evil being contained. Here it is not, which makes sense, given that they really do seem to worship him. The other interesting thing that we have here is that in Zone 3, you can find what are called Shadow Weave scraps. Now, they have a little lore blurb beneath them. It reads, "This heavy fabric, imbued with a quiet brooding darkness, was devised by the Outlanders prior to their first communion with the Void. Though still a core component of their garb, the secret of its making has long since been lost." So the Outlanders seek out the Void. I mean, they've got these structures, these void water structures, where they seem to use the magic of Varen in order to imbue their own with these otherworldly powers. This is what one of those rooms looks like. So that water has been turned this weird purpley color. It emits this purpley light, representing Varen and his purple corruption, just like you can see on the Zone 4 temple over there. So, they've replaced this place with worship to Varen. There's no more Gaia in here. The place is clearly in use. They've moved into it well enough. Still in disrepair, but they're using it. They're clearly using it. Now, down below, also clearly they have repaired what used to be a broken down area. They've improved these stairs, so they have moved into this place in order to turn it into a place that worships Varen instead. We can see him once again right here. And then we see our ice golem here. The rest of the statue has absolutely no hints, or the rest of the place has no hints of Gaia remaining aside from a ruined statue over here. Once again, corroborating my theory that the statues were intentionally defaced, because this is not the devastated lands, okay? This is Zone 3. And she's missing a head here, which means her head was removed intentionally. They want nothing to do with her. The only statue that they have left of her in here, in this entire place, is one that is broken, beheaded. I think that's a pretty clear illustration of their relationship with Gaia. They choose to worship Varen instead. However, it doesn't seem to be all they worship. In addition to their Varen statues and pools of purplish water, you can also find statues of an owl. This is the final in our lineup. We do have 2 more statues. It's just that they're not in the lineup that I put up in that tower, but we will cover them today. This last one is called Statue of the Watcher, and it also has a short blurb. It reads, "The whispers were not what compelled the Outlanders to settle in these colder lands. Yet it remains an unquestionable fact that when they arrived, the whispers were already there." The Outlanders settled in Zone 3, and this presence, the Watcher, these whispers, were already there. It's interesting because it seems to me to almost be a parallel to the whispers that could be heard from Gaia that were referenced earlier. Right? She's asleep, but people can still hear like faint sounds of her. That's what that blurb in the memory statue suggests. And here we have the Watcher, whom the Outlanders seem to be able to hear whispers of. Now, you can find these statues above ground outside their temples and in these enormous temple dungeons alongside statues of Varen. So it's unclear if these are their own distinct thing, if it's its own deity or not. Because the Outlanders seem to have a great deal of care and respect for the Watcher, whatever it is. And there are certainly owls in Zone 3, but they don't look like this. I'll show you. There's 2 owls. These, I don't know if they're in Zone 3. These ones definitely are. They don't look like that. These are very cute owls, and this is a very scary looking one. And you can't find any iconography of them on the Outlanders. You can find Varen's horns like this on the Outlanders that seem to be kind of an imitation of him and the statues of him that they have. He's holding these horns right here. I don't know. Even on their doors, they have what seems to be a representation of Varen with these curling horns right there as well. So I'm really not sure what this is, how it comes into play, or what the implications are that it seems to have been there for a long time. Let's return to our little lineup here. We've gone through everything that was definitely Gaia. We've hit the ones that are something different but maybe related, and then we've hit the ones that are definitely not Gaia. Now let's hit the ones that completely depart from the Gaia-Varen parallel entirely. Up here, we have a couple of Zone 2 statues. These are both very interesting. Let's read what they're called here. We have Statue of the Founding Builder. Long since forgotten by the fallen Scarix, some few statues of the founding builder still stand in their oldest ruins. The few explorers who have since stumbled upon them speak only of an emanating sense of disappointment and disapproval as if the stone itself was stained by its silent witness of the atrocities committed under the first and last Scarrick Empress. So if you didn't know, the Scarricks in the current lore enslaved the Farrens in order to build their ziggurats. The ziggurats seem to be where the Sand Empress is imprisoned, kept, sleeping. It's very unclear. Very, very unclear. However, what is clear is that this is a statue that the Scarricks used to worship. Now, what's interesting is that this paints the Scarricks in the light of having come to here in a positive way. While we're talking about this, let's actually find some models of the Scarricks so you can actually see the creatures we're talking about. They are very alien, insectoid-looking creatures that live in Zone 2. There have been references to them potentially being alien. Whether or not that's true, we don't entirely know if they originate on Orbis or not, but what is clear, what is definitely true, is that they originally had a founder who seemed to contribute to their society to build things, who did not approve of what seems like the Empress's push to enslave and take over parts of the world. I'm sorry if you can hear the dog. In addition to the statue of the founding builder that seems to specifically deal with the Scarricks, we have statue of a legendary beast that seems to deal with the humans in Zone 2. Now, first, let's finish up with the statue of the founding builder. I would assume that it would be in one of the ziggurats that the Scarricks are said to live in, or that were built by the Farrens for the Scarricks. Now, those ziggurats aren't in the game yet, but what is in the game are these elements that, if we click on them, are called primordial Scarrick, whatever it is. And there's a few of these. Primordial something. Let's look it up. All of these are listed as primordial Scarrick building materials. We have the doors, we have a ladder, lamps, lantern, a planter, we have platforms, a pot, another pot, and a window. This seems to paint the picture that the Scarricks used to have a different society that was perhaps more positive. These primordial ones look like almost a more evolved Scarrick society than the ones that we get today, because currently in the game what we have are things like this. This is where we can presently find the Scarricks. This is a nest. Here's the brood mother, with all of her eggs producing more and more Scarricks. Now, of course, we will probably... Now, you just killed yourself on those thorns. Whose fault is that? We will probably get those Scarrick ziggurats eventually. That will kind of change this a little bit. The question is, are they representations of how the Scarricks live now, or how they lived in the past? Is it how this founding builder that seemed to rule over the primordial Scarricks ruled their society in a more positive way than the way that they currently live, enslaving people and attacking people and seeming to just invade and take over the landscape? When you find their nests, my theory that they change the landscape around it with their nastiness is absolutely correct, because they do. You can even see it right here. This is what they do. Fascinating to imagine that they used to have a very different society under a different sort of leader. Lastly, we have statue of a legendary beast. These statues, I don't believe they spawn just yet. I don't believe they spawn in Zone 2. However, what we do get is a lot of elements in Zone 2 that seemed to be related to a wind temple. Now, you can find some of these in-game. They're small rooms underground, but they are just singular rooms right now. They're very small. There's not a lot going on in there right now. I would assume that more of those builds will be added in the future that might include these statues. As far as I've seen, these statues don't currently spawn, but you can even see here, this is an ancient wind temple door. It's got the sigil of wind that the game uses to represent that element, and it seems to be somewhat advanced. This is not a simple swinging door. This is like a sliding booby trap from a Hollywood movie, okay? Like, it seems like they had some stuff going on. They maybe were more advanced than we knew about before the game released, and they worshipped this being that also has the wind sigil on it and seems to be a cobra. Now, while I haven't seen this statue generate in the game, what I have seen in these sunken structures that seem to have sunk beneath the surface of Zone 2 is, let me find the screenshot for you, is this. This seems to be a gold representation of the same statue. It looks like a cobra. And so clearly the humans of Zone 2, before they were destroyed, seemed to worship this being. All of these humans in each zone genuinely, I think, deserve their own video. We got the Crucible and their hubris in Zone 4. We got these humans in Zone 2 and their worship of this entirely different deity. It's absolutely fascinating. The other thing that I found really interesting is that we got the, the wind crystals that seem to be in the ancient wind temple doors and statues. There's a variant to the Pharans. This is called a Pharan burrower. And they look different from the rest of the Pharans. Most of the Pharans look like this. They're these tan colorings. These guys are gray, very pale, and they seem to have a sort of mask on their face that looks like it might use these crystals. And if they're called burrowers, I think it's entirely possible that they are meant to go underground, and maybe they scout things out of these places to use for their, for the rest of their civilization up above. It's hard to say. They don't have, like, any scripted behavior really, other than just they defend their little towns, but very fascinating to think about. We definitely have cobras in the game. We definitely have them. But what's interesting to me is that this statue seems to be huge, right? Over here, we have the bone fragments that you can find all throughout the world of Orbis. Now, they also have a really interesting blurb. It says, Orbis's most advanced civilizations shared a common trait. Obviously, we've established some of these civilizations were pretty advanced. The ancient humans and ancient Scarix seem to have a lot figured out. They shared a common trait, the hubris that ultimately led to their downfall. These bone fragments and the cursed creature from which they were salvaged should serve as a reminder that some paths are better left untrodden. The cursed creature from which they were salvaged. This always made me think of the Zone 2 skeletons. The giant fossils. I don't mean like the little skeletons, I mean these things. Now, there is one part of these fossils that there's so many fossil variants in the prefabs, and I didn't know which one it was, but I did take a picture because I'd like to put that here as well. This looks like a giant skull, and honestly it looks like a dragon-like skull. And I think it would be epic if these did belong to a dragon. Don't actually think that's the case. I think these giant fossils belonged to a giant snake. I've never seen these fossils have arms or legs. I've only seen them have a head or these giant rib cages. That's it. Now, if you've seen arms or legs or anything like that, please send them to me because I would love to see. I would love to know. But what I've seen most of the time is this. This looks like the ribcage of a giant snake, which, if that's the case, would make a lot of sense why the people of Zone 2 would worship a giant snake, especially given that, in their mind, Gaia is silent. She doesn't speak to them. They don't have the Zone 1 interpretation of she's a sleeping goddess. They got the Zone 2 interpretation of she is a silent goddess. So they found something else to worship. And that something else, I believe, was these giant statues or giant fossils, because they look like they belonged to a giant snake, and these people worshipped a snake, a seemingly giant snake. There is one last little bit that I would like to tack on to the end of this little snake theory here, although I think that it belongs elsewhere, but I'm going to throw it in here anyway because I found it really interesting. When I was going through the game files and the models and everything, I found these. This is a saurian, which means lizard person. Now, it could be that they're related to these giant creatures, and there's some sort of, like, anthropomorphized version of them. There's a couple more of them. Let me find them. We got the saurian. We have the saurian hunter. Wearing this armor, we have a Saurian rogue. And then lastly, Saurian warrior. I'm going to guess that they are not in fact related to this. I found it an interesting coincidence because, you know, maybe giant reptilian thing and then there's reptile people. I'm going to bet that these guys live alongside the dinosaurs in Zone 4 and just haven't been added in yet. I've never heard anything about these guys. I've never heard a thing. I don't know if any of you have, or if you have anything, like any insight to offer on these. I've not heard of them. I thought it was absolutely fascinating to just discover this in the game files. But either way, we do have quite a vast pantheon here, larger than I ever thought it was going to be. I really truly thought it would be just like Gaia and Varen, and that would be pretty much it. But no, we have Gaia, we have Varen, we have knightly statues, we have something that could be Gaia but might not be. We have Varen, we have the Watcher, we have the Founding Builder, we have this giant cobra. If you guys enjoyed and you're watching this on YouTube, we do stream these live on Twitch, most Tuesdays at 11 a.m. PST if you want to hop in and lore theorize with us. But either way, drop your theories in the comments. Did I miss something? Did I get something wrong? Do you have a theory that you think fits in with this or contradicts this? Let me know. And if you want to discuss further, hop into the Bread Bakery Discord server. Now, if you're interested, I've also been doing pretty fun builds on the main channel, which will also be linked if you'd like to go check those out. And as the game updates, we're going to get more and more and more of this constantly. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to hop out here, and I'll catch you later. Happy hightailing, you guys.